she grew up in to all intents and purposes, a rainforest, and with a tribe. She would only wear animal skins because that's the only material available to her. It was very hot. So I guess, and Ursula Andress had just done whatever that movie was, where she came out of the sea in a fur bikini. I think they were probably trying to emulate some of that. But I held on. I really held on to, if ever a script came through that said Leela screams, I found a way around it, except when I was eaten by a giant rat. I think anybody would scream under those circumstances, but that is her only scream.
My guest this week, Louise Jameson, is a classically trained actress whose first love is the stage. She spent 2 years with the Royal Shakespeare Company at the beginning of her career, but she also became known to millions of British television viewers through her roles in such hugely popular series as Doctor Who, Tenko, Bergerac, and EastEnders. Her recent theatre credits include Vincent River and directing the UK tour of Revenge. Her audio credits include Doctor Who for Big Finish, writing Atta Girl about the women of the Air Transport Authority during World War II, and multiple titles for BBC Audio and Audible. Louise talks with me today about her unusually young start at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, how her training continued at the Royal Shakespeare Company, how her Doctor Who character, Leela of the Sevateem, reflected the feminism of the 1970s, and how she didn't. How she started writing, what she thinks of opportunities for and representation of women in film and TV over the years, and a whole lot more. I also want to thank her for giving me the permission to release this episode on video. I hope that it will be the first of many. Here is my conversation with Louise Jameson. Louise, welcome to Follow Your Curiosity.
Thank you.
I start everyone with the same question. Were you a creative kid, or did you discover your creative side later on?
Oh, completely creative. And of course, now we have terms for attention deficit disorder, dyslexia, neurodivergent. We understand these things kind of go hand in hand with creativity. I was always being accused of daydreaming, just drifting off. And storytelling, I was obsessed with stories. And aged 4, I went to school being able to read, thanks to my mum. And also because I later discovered I was dyslexic. Of course, if you can get in early with the letters accurately, then you solve a lot of problems that could be created later on. So yeah, I went to school reading, and I was useless in the sewing class. And the teacher used to give me a book to read to the rest of the class while they all got on with their sewing. So yeah, day one, the very first performance I ever did was Little Miss Muffet in a nursery school. And I got this huge round of applause. And I remember, standing behind this door thinking, oh, I'm going to do this forever. I remember having that thought, aged 4. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I know, so lucky. And in when I was a teenager, loads of my friends, I don't know what to do, and I just knew where I was headed. Yeah.
What did your family think of that?
They forced me to I think my mum was secretly thrilled. I think she'd have loved, she was a 50s housewife and dedicated her life to the children and keeping home, cooking lovely meals, all of that. But was queen of the amateur dramatics. And I think in another life, she would definitely have married the two as I did. Not that I ever kept home as well as she did. I kind of live in chaos, really. But
it sort of goes along with that neurodivergent thing, I think.
Yeah. But they said, you've got to get another qualification because it's too precarious. So I looked around for the quickest one I could find, and it was a secretarial course. So I'm actually, and to this day, a very, very good touch typist, which, with the advent of computers, and now I write as well, it's been unbelievably useful. So I'm very grateful to them.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. And you went off to drama school at like 17, I
Yeah, they
think?
let me in really early. They let me into RADA, which is, one of the top colleges in this country,
Mm-hmm.
the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And yeah, I was out at 19. It was only a 2-year course. I was out at 19, ready, trained, raring to go, where most kids were just starting college.
Right. Yeah, I thought that seemed young when I saw it. Did
They
that
put me through some hoops. They really put me through some hoops. They didn't just go, yeah, we'll have her. It was like they called me back, they called me back, they called me back. And I think they were thinking, can we really let her in this young? Because I was actually 16 when I was auditioning and 17 when
Wow.
I went. But they did.
Did
I
it
lied
have
to them. I had an interview with the head teacher, the principal, Mr. Crutwell, and he said, why have you chosen this college? And in all honesty, I'd chosen Central School of Speech and Drama. That's the one I really wanted to go to. They didn't want me. They turned me down. And anyway, I said to Mr. Crutwell, I had a dream last night that I was 92 years old and I was hammering on this door going, let in. I said, I'm not going anywhere till you let me in. Complete fabrication. Anyway, they let me
wow.
in.
It's always amazing to me when you hear these stories of, people like you who applied to a school and weren't let in. And then later on, I mean, obviously you got into RADA instead, but, later on end up doing amazing things. And you sort of sit there going, yeah, you didn't call that one well, did you?
Well, I believe I might be wrong, but I believe RADA turned down Vanessa Redgrave and Central School took her. So,
It
you
evened
know,
out.
they all make mistakes, don't they?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Did going there so young, was that an issue at all? Did the other students there notice, care? Was it a factor?
No, we had an 11-year age gap in our term. We went from 11 to 28. Um, and I think it stood me in good stead because it's a bit more liberal now, but it was run on quite rigid. I was straight out of school. So I felt very liberated there because I was only studying stuff I wanted to study. I wasn't being forced through maths and geography and history. Of course, it's all incredibly important, but I like to approach it through drama. Um, but the 28-year-old who'd been a plumber and lived a life and had kids and, suddenly being told that if he was late 3 times, he was out. And that it was strict. If you were late 3 times over 2 years, that's it, out.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Wow.
mean, we actors are often accused of being undisciplined but that show goes up at 7:30. It's like
Right.
you can't skate in 5 minutes late. You can't because you're not just letting yourself down. It's like the whole building is in trouble if you're late.
Hmm.
When I was on EastEnders, if you were late on the studio floor, you got fined an episode fee, just taking out your wage packet. No, they don't wait for an excuse.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely something people don't think about when
Yeah.
I think so many people think that, acting's not a real job and all of that kind of stuff. And so they make those assumptions when no, you got to show up or you're not getting paid or keeping the job. And it's not like having a salaried 9 to 5 position that goes on for years and years. You're constantly out there looking for the next thing and hoping that your agent helps you find the next thing. And because if it doesn't, you're in trouble.
But there's also that sense of responsibility to your team.
Mhm.
There's I work currently working on a soap called Emmerdale. Uh, and there's a kind of competition to get to the floor first. Once you go for a makeup check or you've gone for a costume change or they're a little ahead of time and you've been called in and 10 minutes early so you can get on the floor quicker. It's like if you don't keep the floor waiting, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So you ended up going to the RSC pretty early too.
Yeah. That was
And
like a 3 years training, really. I'd done maybe 2 or 3 years in the business. I'd done a bit of rep, fortnightly rep, which is a real learning curve. Learn a play, perform, and then when you're performing that, you're rehearsing the next. So you're working from 10 in the morning till 10 at night. It's a hard slog. I loved it. £14 a week. I was
wow.
getting to do that. Yeah, hard work. But then RSC came and it was I was working with the creme de la creme. I don't know if you've heard her mentioned ever, but Cicely Berry taught me voice. She's like the queen of voice. One of her pupils is Patsy Rosenberg, who then took over teaching at the National. And I worked with John Barton, no longer with us, who what he didn't know about Shakespeare wasn't worth knowing. I learned about you don't need to hear this, but I learned things like triphthong vowels and hard consonants and soft consonants and how to do the kind of Sherlock Holmes work on a Shakespearean text. I found it so exciting and interesting. Stuff I'd responded to when I was 11. Um, not knowing all these technicalities, Juliet's speech, when he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine. And those words excited me, but I didn't know why. I didn't know that speech was about them making love. I didn't know that until much, much later. You never taught that stuff in school.
No.
Well, that would make a 16-year-old's ears prick up, wouldn't it?
Right? Yeah, it's funny because you saying you were 11, I was 13 or 14 when I first discovered Shakespeare. And I can't remember now if I actually was curious enough to go to the library and take the books out first, or, and this will absolutely cement me as the geek I am, if it was right after Doctor Who was on Sunday afternoons on the public TV station near me. For at least a while, there was this show called The Shakespeare Hour that was hosted by Walter Matthau. And for 1 hour every week, he would do a little intro and they would show 1 hour of one of the BBC productions from the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, when they did that whole series. And so I just sat there and never turned the TV off and was completely transfixed. I mean, I remember watching Felicity Kendall in Twelfth Night, and I knew her from watching The Good Neighbors. And then, Lalla Ward turned up as Ophelia, and I was like, that's Romana. So it all kind of came together that way for me. But, I was the weird kid in all of my literature classes because I liked Shakespeare and everybody else was like, oh God, we have to slog through this. I was like, it's great. What's wrong with you?
Well, what's wrong with this that they've not been taught correctly.
Right.
I'm sure the teachers have all the passion, but they have to reach this criteria of an academic understanding and not an emotional understanding or a storytelling skill.
Right. And also, you're asking 14-year-olds to go home and read Romeo and Juliet and make sense of it off the page without seeing it. Seeing the movie was always the prize at the end after you suffered through trying to figure out what the heck all of this was on the page. I have thought that was backwards since I was 14 years old.
You're absolutely right.
It's meant to be performed and seen. Why on earth do we think this is an okay way to teach this?
Yeah. Yeah. And he didn't write it to be studied.
Right.
Or she didn't write it to be studied. There's very strong evidence that it might have been a woman.
Could
He might have
be.
been a she.
Yeah. Yeah, but it wasn't meant for any of that.
No.
I've often said it's sort of like if you handed a 14-year-old a Beethoven score and said, "Go home and read this, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow." It's like that makes no sense. You would never do that,
That's
but we
that's
do it with
such a good
Shakespeare.
analogy. That is such a good. I'm going to steal that and
Go for
use
it.
it.
Yeah.
Because it's just a load of dots on a page. It means nothing
Right.
until a musician brings it to life.
Right. Right. And then when I was teaching, I also had the kids who would come up to me. I taught English as a second language, and so I was not the one teaching them Shakespeare. But every year, one of them would come up to me and say, "Miss Norbeck, I have to read this Shakespeare, and it's all in Old English." And I was like, "No, it's not." And always would pull out the copy of Beowulf and say, "Can you read this?" And say, "No." I'm like, "Yeah, that's because that's Old English. What you're reading is not Old English." And they would kind of go, "Okay." You know, but but it was true. So, and I was like, just stick with it. It'll come together when you watch the movie, if not before. It's a shame that you're gonna have to wait until then. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I loved watching all of those, whatever I could find, even if it was only, the first hour one week and then 3 weeks later the last hour. I didn't care. I was watching all of it, and it still is one of my favorites. So I was excited to see that you also are such a Shakespeare aficionado.
I have a one-woman show which
I
I
saw.
tout around called "I Was Shakespeare's Mistress," which is just it's like, I don't know if you have the program Desert Island Discs, where
Mhm.
some chooses their favorite music. Well, I just choose my favorite speeches. Most of them are Shakespeare and link them with anecdotes. It's not quite as worthy as it sounds. It's not quite Twinset and Pearls. I do stray into stand up and a little bit political and uh yeah. But I use Shakespeare as a springboard for it all.
That sounds fantastic. What's your favorite Shakespeare role that you've played?
I think probably Rosalind in As You Like It. I played it in Regent's Park Open Air Theatre.
Nice.
And my first experience of Shakespeare was A Midsummer Night's Dream in Regent's Park Open Air Theatre. So it was lovely to bring it full circle
Oh,
and
that's great.
perform. So, yeah.
That's great. Wow. So you got to do Royal Shakespeare Company, and then not long after that, you ended up playing Leela on Doctor Who, which must have been quite a contrast.
You know, my agent decided, and I think probably quite rightly, that I'd forged ahead in theatre and played. I wasn't playing leads, but I was playing quite substantial roles at the RSC. Bianca in The Shrew and Cordelia in King Lear. So I got to a particular level, and they said to me, we could keep you on, but we think it would be good for you to just go and explore outside of this company for a while. And she said, I think you should do a TV series. So we held out, and I got down to the last 10 for The Avengers, which Joanna Lumley got, of course, but who wants her career? And then there was a series called Angels about nurses, I nearly got. There was a series called Survivors, which I nearly got. But Pennant Roberts interviewed me for Survivors. This is in the days way before self-taping. And liked my audition, but I didn't get the part. Lucy Fleming got the part I went for. And then later he remembered me and called me in for Doctor Who. And there were 60 young women they saw.
Wow.
And that whittled down to 10 and then 3 and then me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Yeah.
I never knew it would turn into my pension.
I was gonna say it's with you forever once you're there.
Forever. There
Yeah.
isn't a day goes by where someone doesn't mention it. or I get a letter, or someone asks me to do a PA because of, Doctor Who. Not a day goes by.
That's
It's
amazing.
extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Yeah. It's like I remember John Leeson saying in Long Island a couple of years ago, he was supposed to come in and be the robot dog for one story. And he's been doing it for how many years now?
But part of the reason they kept him on, because it's no secret that Tom and I, there was friction between Tom and I. It's absolutely fine now. He's publicly apologized, and we've done an enormous amount of audio work together, and really have got on well. Thank goodness. And but when John came in to the rehearsal room, the whole atmosphere calmed down. He's got this kind of social magic touch of getting on with everybody, and I think they saw him as a kind of mediator, as well as a very talented actor. But I think they also saw him as some kind of mediator between Tom and I, and just kept him on, which was just fabulous. And it really was lovely to have, because Tom and I are the only two regulars. Even the directors changed, even our producers changed halfway through the season. So we were the two that were the only two that were there all the way through, until lovely Mr. Leeson arrived.
Well, and he got to be an iconic robot dog too. So, I mean, who doesn't love K9? I think there are people who don't love K9, and I do not understand them.
Really?
Yeah, I think I've heard people say that, though I can't remember where now, so I could be wrong. But I am a sucker for K9. I actually bought both of my nephews little plush K9s for Christmas this year. And at Thanksgiving, I was like, we have to sit down and watch this episode, because, it's like, we have to watch The Invisible Enemy so you know where K9 comes from. And we almost didn't make it. We finished it, I think, the day before Christmas Eve. And the little one just turned 10, and the older one is about to turn 13. But when we finished, they were like, K9 is so cute. I thought, that's good, because there's two of them under the tree downstairs. But yeah, no, I think K9 is fabulous. But I also, in watching the Blu-ray extras, the behind the sofa episodes and things like that, it is so delightful to watch you with Tom now, because it's so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a funny old shift of relationship, big time. And he's what, in his 90s now. So, and has I think probably about 15, 20 years ago, just had this huge turnabout in well, I would term it as gratitude. I'm not quite sure how he'd phrase it differently. I think that would be a bit woo-woo for him. But I saw him be profoundly grateful for the life he's had, and the experiences he's had, and how much Doctor Who has done for him, as well as what he's done for Doctor Who.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great to see his videos now. I think he did a Christmas one this past year that was really quite adorable. So yeah, but it's a lot of fun to watch all of those. For people who are not familiar, on the Doctor Who Blu-ray sets, they're like half an hour, and they're called Behind the Sofa because, kids always hide behind the sofa from all of the monsters, and they have a variety of people paired or tripled up on that sofa watching the episode and commenting on it. And to watch the dynamics is as much fun as watching the actual comments and seeing the little clips that are included. So they're a treat. They really are. And it looks like you all have a fabulous time making them.
Yeah, it's always good. It's never a bad atmosphere, really, when a group of people get together to do anything related to Doctor Who. When we travel to the conventions, or we go and do a Big Finish audio, or there's always because only you really know what it's like to be in it. And it's the same in the soap world. I love the soap awards. not because prizes are being given out, but because it's a room full of people who completely understand where your life is at the moment, like nobody else can, because we're all having the same experience.
Right, right. So I'm curious with Leela because she was such an unusual companion. I don't think there's ever been another companion quite like Leela, and I can't imagine that anyone would try. But, the reputation before Leela was much more I'm the girl who gets everything explained to her and then runs around and gets in trouble and screams a lot. And that's not at all what Leela was. And again, for people who aren't familiar, Leela is this character who is a tribeswoman, essentially. She's not terribly educated, but I don't think she's stupid by any stretch of the imagination. She has her own talents and instincts. And I think, for the mid 70s, it was a very interesting choice.
We were on the crest of the feminist wave, weren't we? The women's lib coming over from America, and 76, 77, I was recording, 77, 78, it was going out. And maybe maybe I'm a year out there, but it was around there. And it was like, we were just, women were just going. And in 1976, the Equal Rights Bill went through in England, which meant I could, as a single female, I could get a mortgage. Couldn't get one before. Outrageous, isn't it? And that's quite modern history, really. I know it seems forever ago to you, maybe, but I mean, I did manage to get one because I joined an association. So there were 6 of us, and we had 2 male professionals who kind of guaranteed it for the rest of us. To this day, I'm not sure how it worked, but I seem to snuck in under the radar and got myself a mortgage. But I had to go through hoops, it
Right.
wasn't just plain sailing, despite the income. And so I think they wanted to have, they wanted more assertion in the companion. Also, Liz Sladen was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And there was kind of no point in trying to recreate Liz.
Right.
So why not go for the polar opposite? Mind you, they took Lila's clothes off to do it. And at the
Yeah.
time, I didn't think that was in any way gratuitous. Of course, looking back now, I think, not really necessary to be running around in a leather leotard. But, she grew up in to all intents and purposes, a rainforest, and with a tribe. She would only wear animal skins because that's the only material available to her. It was very hot. So I guess, and Ursula Andress had just done whatever that movie was, where she came out of the sea in a fur bikini. I think they were probably trying to emulate some of that. But I held on. I really held on to, if ever a script came through that said Leela screams, I found a way around it, except when I was eaten by a giant rat. I think anybody would scream under those circumstances, but that is her only scream.
Yeah.
So,
And that's phenomenal because it says so much about who she is. Because she's
yeah.
not a screamer. She's the one who has to be talked down from knifing someone who looks like a threat. I mean, in any sort of confrontation, I would want Leela on my side, not the other side.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Tom hated all that. He hated the Janus thorns. Um, for those of your listeners that don't know, the Janus thorn was something I carried in a pouch, and if I stuck it in anybody, they were motionless for 15 minutes and then they died, paralyzed for 15 minutes and then they died. And he just hated it. I mean, he thought it solved too many problems for me to be running around with weapons. It slightly took the danger out of it. And I think he probably got a point there. But yeah, he just didn't like the violence. He wanted to find other ways to solve, which is the ethos of the Doctor, isn't it?
Right.
Is to solve through discussion and
Yeah.
tolerance.
Yeah. Brains.
Yeah,
Brains over brawn a whole lot.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I think I have trouble, at least, let's put it that way, thinking of a companion who has been involved in more different parts of the Doctor Who universe than Leela, especially on audio. I mean, she's in Jago and Lightfoot, which makes sense because that was a spin-off of one of those episodes. But she turns up with the Fifth Doctor, she turns up with the Sixth Doctor, she goes and lives on Gallifrey, which again is a spin-off, but still has this incredible life on this other planet. She turns up kind of everywhere. I was listening to the last John Hurt set. I'm way behind on my Big Finish the other day, and there she was, and I thought, good grief, where isn't Leela? Which is phenomenal. She gets to do so many things for
I
a
worked
character
with
that.
John Hurt way back, and I don't know if it ever came over there, but Play for Today used to be a Wednesday night program where they'd try out new writing and often new actors. And John Hurt was leading the cast in a play called The Peddler. And I played, and he had a wife and a mistress and a one night stand, and I played the one night stand. So I worked with him right at the beginning of my career, and then right at the end of his. It was another piece of synchronicity that was, privilege, I suppose.
Absolutely. And he certainly seemed to have fun doing the Doctor Who stuff.
Oh, I think he did. Yes. I think he's quite difficult to control. Not my job, obviously, but I think he's quite difficult to control.
Yeah, but it was when I realized it, I thought, I can't think of another companion who got to interact with all of these different characters and doctors and situations and really I think not that she needs to prove her worth, but I think she proves that it's not all about smarts, that you can be smart in multiple ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got a huge IQ.
Oh yeah.
Just her intelligence is all about instinct, and because of the Big Finish development, she's also become educated in other ways now. Depending which branch of the story I'm leading off with. It was particularly joyous to work with Lalla Ward, and to be her companion, and to have that her kind of slightly severe logic and my gentler instinct by her side. I think it was really lovely for the writers to have that contrast to work with.
Yeah, it works so well. And for a long time, I avoided Gallifrey because I thought, when Gallifrey, the series, for those who don't know, because I thought, a series about politics on Gallifrey? What? And then when I finally broke down and gave it a try back like 7 years ago or something like that, I was on a road trip and I was madly downloading the next one every time I stopped somewhere. It was like absolutely instantly hooked because that relationship between the two of them is so strong. And then you have, Braxiatel and Narvin kind of to foil off of with them, and the whole dynamic of those four characters is so fantastic. But I will admit that my favorite single episode is the one where you and Lalla switch places.
Oh, we end up in those floating tanks. Yes,
Yes.
she loved that. Lalla absolutely, well, so did I, but Lalla absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And we're a bit like that off stage as well. She's got this kind of scientific brain. She was married to Richard Dawkins, and that's now with a ex-Cambridge professor. So she's very attracted to the academic mind, and I'm a huge advocate of homeopathy, and I have a daily yoga practice, and it's on the other side of the medical world,
Right.
very skeptical of big pharma, and try and avoid that wherever possible,
Yeah.
I got my very first day's filming as Leela ever at I think it was Ealing Studios. No, not Ealing. Yeah, Ealing. Anyway, there was after I'd finished filming, there was this little knock on my door, and I opened it, and there was this young lad who's about 12 with a pen and paper, going, "Can I have your autograph?" This is long before I had been on screen, and he was the son of a sound guy from the next studio, and it turned out to be Gary Russell. Of course, produced Gallifrey. So if I'd been nasty to him, I
Right.
don't think Gallifrey would ever exist. So I went, yeah, of course, come in. I signed it, gave him a picture, and all of that.
Yeah.
So that was nice to him, eh?
Yeah. Well, and I think Gallifrey was really his passion project, and it's such a good one.
Yeah.
Such a great one. So, anyway, I'm glad I got over my initial reluctance to listen because it's just such a treat. So,
And it does have its own very specific fandom. People
yeah.
listen. I think probably more female based. The main bulk of Big Finish is listened to by men, but I think Gallifrey's got a very strong female based
Well, and that
fandom.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, everybody loves Narvin. I was
Yes.
laughing at LA in February at Gallifrey when he had the little Narvinette buttons. I was like, okay, I have to have one of those. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the other thing that's unusual about Leela is, as you said, to be playing a character over such a stretch of time. The way that she has evolved and you have evolved.
Yeah. I don't think I can't think of anything else. It's because of the power of audio, isn't it? I mean, I would love to go back. I was bowled over by the reaction to the commercial I did for the Blu-ray.
Yes.
I am Leela, warrior of the Sevateem. It was just a little 2-minute ad as far, and I had huge fun doing it. And we were in this great big quarry, and a lovely actor to work with. And they gave me an egg whisk, which was a weapon of mass destruction. So I,
Yeah.
used all the powers of my imagination to make that work. And shooting at the sky. And of course, they put the Daleks in afterwards. But the reaction to it, I mean, people said that it actually made them tear up to see Leela in her whatever, let's say 70s, 80s. And I just thought that I think there's probably some scope to be had to put that on screen and in the story. I hope Russell T Davies is listening to this.
You could send
But
him a
I think
copy.
I do think there's a story there, and I don't know what it is yet, but I don't think she's quite done yet.
I don't think so. And I will admit I watched that again this morning and I teared up
Yeah.
again this time too.
You teared up.
Hmm. I think there's just something. First of all, there's obviously the nostalgia factor, but there's just the fact of Leela not only still being there, and again, for people who don't follow Doctor Who, the context is that there's this huge time war with the Daleks, which are the iconic Doctor Who alien monster. But the fact that she's still there, and now she's in full Time Lord robe regalia and is a commander in this fight, even though this isn't even her own planet. And she's still the same Leela underneath all of it. Again, I am Leela, warrior of the Sevateem, and blasting Daleks out of the sky is powerful stuff, like this character isn't still just, chasing things around with a knife. And she's gained a position of respect, and she's to some degree in charge of something involved in this great conflict, and she refuses to back down ever in the face of that conflict. Also doesn't hurt that you looked absolutely stunning. But, the whole thing, it was just like, wow, this fabulous woman warrior is out here still fighting. And there is power in that.
I had to not fight exactly, but I had to ask quite firmly for the long white hair.
Mm,
Just thought Leela isn't going to be fussed with hairdressers.
no.
It's not gonna. She needs that. She needs that look. Healthy aging woman that doesn't really care about her appearance, just about the honesty and truthfulness with which she's leading her life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't want to go with, chic Bob.
No, that wouldn't have been
My
Leela.
work. No.
No, I think everybody would have been like, what happened to her hair? Yeah, but she's such a great icon that way. And I think that, anybody who looks at that character as, like we were saying, there are aspects, especially in her costume, that can be seen as anti-feminist, but I think overall, she's a fabulous feminist icon.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, yeah. I teared up for a reason, and so did everybody else. So, and it's really cool to see her evolve and to see you get to keep playing her. So, anyway, but speaking of Big Finish related things, I mean, you've done some really interesting things there without Leela being part of the picture. You've written things for them, you've directed things for them, you basically created a whole series for them. Had you ever imagined that that was a direction that you were going to end up going in?
No, I have David Richardson to thank for my writing, really. He has encouraged me all the way along the line. And the first job he gave me, I went, no, I can't write this on my own. I'm going to co-write it, which I did with Nigel Fairs. We've collaborated quite a lot on various scripts. And then he said, the next one, I want you to do it on your own. And then I wrote for the Omega Factor and Survivors and Doctor Who. He's given me a big scope. And to this stage, you could give me anything as an actor and I could make something of it. I am supremely confident. Some would say arrogant. I can make any text work, even if it's badly written. But writing, I've got this little voice in my head. I am not worthy. I never trained as a writer. I don't have the ability. I shouldn't really be here. This is all that was just a lucky fluke. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those voices. And I do know my writing's improved, and I do know I've got a bit better, but I still, I left school with 4 GCSEs. I haven't got a university degree behind me. I'm dyslexic. I can't spell. My punctuation's all over the place. I have to have someone proofread everything. So it's hard. I find it hard. I find it almost painful sometimes, writing.
Well, I'll tell you a secret that's not probably really a secret, but I don't know, maybe it is. I did an MFA in creative writing about 15 years ago. And I was stunned when I got there at how many of my classmates struggled with things like grammar and spelling, but they still managed to get themselves into an MFA program and do amazing things. So, for you and for anybody else who's listening who thinks that they can't be a writer because they have trouble with grammar or spelling or anything, that's what proofreaders and editors are for.
Yes, I guess. But yes, I know. And then I think recently, I'm not. When does this go out?
Oh, the end of the year.
Oh, right. So I've written a short. I can say this because it hasn't come out. It's coming out in October. I've written a short story for Doctor Who magazine
Excellent.
for the Halloween edition. I think that's when it's going out. I hope it is. And I hovered over the, after my fourth or fifth draft, they think it's the first draft. I hovered over the send button.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sent it. And I sent it to about 5 people. And not one of them got back to me for 3 days. And I was like, oh, that's it then. It's rubbish. Nobody like. But of course, I'd sent it late on a Friday night, and people don't get to their inbox until Monday morning, right? So
No, yeah.
yeah. Anyway, it's fine. They like it, and I've got this amazing friend of mine, Bryony Waters, who's doing the illustrations. She's not illustrated for the magazine before, and they are phenomenal. Her illustrations are phenomenal. So I'm really pleased with the end result. But it was a blooming journey for tuppence halfpenny. They don't pay amazingly.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's true. Those demons pop up in your head. Silence is almost worse than no, we don't like it. Because at least then, if somebody says, no, we don't like it, you know where you stand. But
Yeah,
silence
yeah.
could be anything. And
Yeah.
human beings are really good at psyching ourselves out.
Yes, yeah. Like I say with acting, if I got a bad crit, it used to upset me dreadfully, but it doesn't anymore because I know it's a hackneyed phrase, but I know I've bounced off my truth and I've done the best I possibly can with it. And if you don't like it, then that's not my problem.
Right. Right.
But with the writing, I'm going, oh yeah, you're right. Can't do it.
But I think actors have a really good sense, probably more than most other supposedly non-writing professions, of what good writing looks like because you deal with it all the time.
It's true. It's true. I've had other people's words in my mouth for over 50 years, and you there's a very good litmus test of how easy it is to learn. If the words slip in, then it's well written. If you really have to battle at getting the lines in, then there's a problem in there somewhere.
Well, and I think, that was one of the first pieces of advice I was given when I was doing my MFA program, was to read everything out loud before I sent it back.
Oh, really?
Because you can hear where it doesn't flow. It's the exact same thing. And you may also be able to hear where your punctuation is off and whatever, but if something's complicated either to understand or to read, you'll know it when you read it out loud in a way you don't when you just read it to yourself.
Well, I mean, that's something I do automatically because that's my skill.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I do anyway, but I didn't realize that was a technique that was taught. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought the first time, it's like, I don't think this is going to make that big a difference. Ha ha, I was wrong. And now I pass it on to other writers that I work with. I'm like, just read it out loud. You'll know. You won't have to ask. Because we all know how language flows when we hear it. And if it doesn't, when you read it off of that page, there's no question at all. That's your free writing tip for the day, listeners.
Thank you. I should come to you for lessons.
So, but you've also directed a lot. Had you directed much before Big Finish?
Not audio. I directed stage, and I also taught drama to teenagers, which I love doing, especially the naughty ones, because they come with, chutzpah and life experience and often a temper. They have energy that's that the good students often don't have, who will learn their lines and hit their mark and be very well behaved in the class, but they haven't, got that spark,
I think
that
they've
imagination.
probably had it de-sparked from themselves,
Yeah,
right?
de-sparked. Kids are de-sparked. It's a good word.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us are. So many adults just feel like, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. I want to try this thing, but no, I couldn't do that. And it just seems so tragic to me. Not that everyone has to be everything, but if there's something that calls to you, go try it. If for no better reason so that you're not regretting it at the end of your life that you never did it.
I'm reading a book at the moment called Briefly Perfectly Human, and it's written by a death doula. Is it called
Mm-hmm.
doula? And she says that's the big regret. I should have, would have, could have.
Right. I wish I had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the big regret on the deathbed. Over and over again, she sees it, that people settle for
Yeah.
less.
Yeah. And I think it's probably unlikely that you can make it that far without regretting anything. But I think if you can minimize the number of things you regret, you've done pretty well.
And regret what you have done and not what you haven't. I mean,
Yes.
that's an
Yes.
adage I think is worth doing. And actually, all we can do is deal with the now, isn't it? That's all we have. As the Buddha says, there is no yesterday, there is no tomorrow. It just doesn't exist.
Right.
There's just now, this.
Yeah. But we're so divorced from now anymore. We sit and stare at phones that take up all of our attention and miss everything that's going on around us.
I think it's rather scary, this dopamine addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I include myself in that. I
Oh,
can
yeah. We all have it
go,
now.
just have a look at Instagram, and then it's half an hour's gone by. Half an hour that I'm never going to get back. And what have I done? I've watched some puppies, and I've wept over Gaza, and
Right.
I've yeah, contributed nothing to the world. I've just soaked up what other people want me to believe and observe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the attention economy, I think is what they call it.
Or
And
do they?
yeah, because all of those sites are competing for our attention. That's why Instagram and Facebook and all of those are so addictive. They've figured out how to keep your attention on the app longer because that makes them more money, which is also kind of terrifying. The number of times that I look at things like this and think of a Doctor Who episode, because isn't that like the quintessential Doctor Who plot, is that some big evil corporation and or alien has figured out a way to completely strip the human race of something that makes it fundamentally human. And
Have you watched Years and Years?
I watched part of it back in 2019 before I came over your way for a vacation, and it was so freaky that I never finished. I just
Did you
couldn't
not?
quite bear to finish it, and I've kind of
In
wondered
light
since
of
then
this,
if
in
I should
light
go
of this
back.
conversation, I think you'd find it
I
fascinating. Yeah,
probably should go back to it. Yeah.
it was amazing.
It was a little too real in 2019,
Yeah,
and I'm sure it's even more real now because it certainly was foreseeing things that were just the current situation then taken to its logical conclusion.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the finest bit of television I've ever watched.
Yeah, it was, even without finishing it, it was very good. That's why it got to me. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I'll go back and give it another look.
Okay.
I promise, since you asked. Has Do you think, going back to the writing, do you think that all of your time with Shakespeare has influenced how you write?
Oh, absolutely. I do. Yes, completely. The sensuality and rhythm of the language for me is paramount to make something work. It is music, and it's like a piece of jazz. So you have this literally a heartbeat under what Shakespeare says, and then he'll take you up, but he'll always come back to the beat. It's like listening to really good improvised jazz. And if I could write with that kind of skill, with an nth of that skill, I'd be a happy woman. Yeah.
I think, I remember those same high school teachers talking about how iambic pentameter is the most similar meter to the way that humans speak, and thinking,
Oh, yeah.
we don't really talk like that, do we? But I
Would
think
you like
there's a
to have
lot
a
to
cup of
it.
tea? Would you like to have a cup of tea? I mean, it's
It's
just
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me that, there is that kind of a meter that reflects regular speech so well. All of the rest of them kind of feel like da 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 da. They get a little bit sing-songy, or you can make them sing-songy, and yet it doesn't really happen so much with good old iambic pentameter.
So when I'm teaching it, so this is why Shakespeare has, all this, forgive me, I'm
No,
probably telling you things. So
not at all.
the reason you have 5 meters to a bar is, the thrust through of the storytelling written in a heartbeat rhythm. And as an audience, you can hear when the rhythm goes off, and that alerts you to there being something much deeper in the offing and going through the actor's psyche. And arguably, the most famous line in Shakespeare is to be or not to be, to be or not to be. That is the question. He's put you've got an extra little foot on there. And that's, of course, he's contemplating whether to kill himself or not. So, of course, his heartbeat's going to be all over the place. So when you come across that in a Shakespeare speech, there's one too short or one too many, or he's only used hard consonants, which would indicate fury. There are a million different clues to look for. Or the meter's interrupted by somebody else finishing the line. That tells you how quickly you need to interrupt, or whether you need to leave a pause because you've only got 2 beats to finish the line. There's all these little indications, which there's no point in teaching any of that until someone's fallen in love, as you say, with the end result first, and then go back and look at, like, how did that happen? How did you make that? So it's a really long answer to say that I think I'm hugely, hugely influenced by Shakespeare. Yeah, of course.
Well, and to that point, about 25 years ago, I'm right outside of Princeton, New Jersey, and there had been a Princeton rep company. And every summer they would do their Shakespeare in the Park. And they brought someone in named Anne Ochio Grosso from the Midwest, and I think she had also done Shakespeare in DC and whatever. And she did a workshop where she had us reading from the first folio and was going over all the kinds of things that you were just talking about. Like, this is what a comma means, and this is what a period means, and this is what the dash means. And it was absolutely like having my mind blown straight all over the walls. I just could not believe that you could find that much in a handful of lines from Shakespeare, that all of that was in there. And she didn't even get into as much as what you were just talking about, but it was beyond eye-opening. And that really was the night that I thought, I was working in tech support at the time, and I was like, I can't do this. I got to go teach. I need to go teach, because this is so wild, and they're never going to let me teach this to high schoolers, but I still have to go teach.
Oh, that's incredible. Literally, you decided that night.
Yeah.
Yay. Good old Shakespeare.
Yeah. It was just, and but if I had, gone home and called up friends or my parents or anybody like that, and tried to explain to them what I had just heard, I think they probably would have said, maybe you should go to the ER. You don't sound quite right. Like, what are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? Is there a med you need to take? No, I'm just excited because who knew? Who knew? It was
I
all.
think when it works, I was asked by I told you I've just broken my knee, and I was left with the a fracture expert at the clinic while he wanted to get his boss to discuss something under my kneecap, and we had this rather awkward moment where we were suddenly left making polite conversation instead of discussing my skeleton, And he said, just out of the blue, he said, what do you love most about acting? And I said to him, what I love most is that pin drop moment, when everybody in the building, 2,000 people in the audience, everybody on stage, you're waiting to see, is the gun going to go off? Are they going to kiss? Is she going to burst into tears? Whatever the moment is, there's a collective concentration. Somebody said everybody's heart starts beating at the same time. I hope that's true. I don't know how anybody
can believe it.
Yeah, and Shakespeare has so many of those moments. If you've been lulled properly by the jazz to lead you to that moment, and everybody's on song. It doesn't happen every night. Someone might have a cough in the audience, or a phone will go off, or somebody actors fluff their line, but sometimes those nights when everything's perfect.
And everything's magic.
It's divine. I think it touches the divine, whatever you believe to be. It comes from somewhere else. It comes from a whole line of storytellers, the oldest profession ever.
Yeah. I think when we really are in that moment in whatever creative thing we're doing, we are in touch with that same life force, whatever you want to call it. And that's why it is so magical, and we enter that flow state. I think there's really something more going on there.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah. So now I have the challenge of that feeling like such a great place to stop while I have another question.
Go on then.
Well, I really wanted to hear what you think about how things are and have changed for women in film and television over the years, and how they are now, if that's not a whole separate episode, which it might be.
It really is, isn't it? The what do we do now moment, that. I think on the whole, it's absolutely going in the right direction. But I think we still have our challenges. That's the short answer. There still aren't enough female writers, right down on base level. I can't expect a 23-year-old ambitious male to write about the menopause. That's not his experience. And, good luck to him. And I hope he has a fantastic career and he writes about what he knows and what he feels passionate about. But we've got to it's no good me as an actor sitting here going, I need better parts. Well, we've got to get writing them. We can't rely on men to do that for us.
Right.
Sometimes, you get an amazing male writer for women. But really, writing from your own experience is you're going to produce the best work. So we have to get writing. This is a note to myself as well.
A note to yourself and a rallying cry for all the women out there. Yeah.
All the women out there. And I think, sexual harassment and all of that it's still going on. It's easier to report it now. You're more likely to be believed now. But it's still happening. Yeah, we've just got to get very courageous about calling it out immediately, nipping it in the bud. Yeah.
Yeah. And yet I think that's the most difficult thing for a lot of people to do, is to actually, because you go through that whole process where you psych yourself out, right? Like, did that really happen? And was it really what I thought it was? And was it really that bad? And yet it seems to me, if you have to ask yourself all of those questions, it's not because nothing happened.
Which is why collectively it works better because you mention it in private to somebody, and that's where the me too happens, and that's you're validated. You're not dealing with it on your own. There are plenty of places to go and get validated now.
Yeah.
I'm in my 70s and I've done 3.5 years therapy, and I really had to work hard on myself. There's so many actors' careers I could ruin with one, historically, one to a rag mag. There's kind of no point. It's posthumous for a lot of them. What's the point? However, I wish I'd had more support back in the day. I think it's probably why I've championed the charity I support is Domestic Abuse Volunteer Support Service. So so much is done behind closed doors without any support. So it's to ferret out the most private abuse and show, well, it happens to men as well, to show people that they have somewhere to turn. And it's as true of our industry, where it's still very important what you look like. And along with that goes, a whole kind of sexual harassment. It's such a complicated question you ask. A good one.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think on the whole, it's very positive things are happening. Yeah.
Well, and your comments about needing more female writers reminds me of my conversation with Lizzie Hopley, who, decided there weren't parts that were the parts that were available were not the kind that she wanted. And so she just sat down and started writing them for herself, which I think is fabulous on so many fronts. You go and you create your own role. So it exists because you created it. And if you can make it happen, so much the better. But then it's also out there for somebody else. And it's creating greater representation of what women really are capable of, whatever. And I mean, that's just genius to me.
And it was true back in the day. Lily Tomlin did some amazing work on your side of the pond that, for example, really did some fantastically complex female issue stuff, keeping it light and entertaining and profound all at the same time. And that's been going since, when? Late 60s, early 70s, early 70s.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the momentum's slow. We need to speed it up a bit.
I would agree with that. Just as someone watching characters on TV, I would definitely agree with that. Though it is better. It is definitely better. Yeah. So, all right. Well, I have really, really enjoyed this conversation, Louise.
Yeah,
I'm so glad.
Me too. It's been a joy. Thank you.
That's this week's episode. Thanks so much to Louise Jameson and to you for watching. Louise's links are in the show notes, and I hope you'll leave a review for this episode. There is a link to do that right in the show notes below, and you can always leave a comment as well. It's super easy, and it really, really makes a difference. I really appreciate you joining us, and I hope that you'll share the episode with a friend.